Welcome back to the Charlène Gisèle show. I am excited to have Elle Russ with us today to talk about thyroid health. Elle is a passionate advocate for primal and ancestral health, and she's the number one best-selling author of the Paleo Thyroid Solution. And she's also the creator of the Ultimate Thyroid Course. Elle is a master coach and a leading expert in thyroid health. She has not only managed to overcome her thyroid challenges, but also helped thousands of professionals worldwide do the same. And today she will empower you to take charge of your thyroid health. I first became familiar with Elle's work when I became a certified primal health coach back in 2020, and her passion for empowering others to take control of their health and lives was so clear to me that I couldn't wait to invite her on my show. I hope that you will enjoy today's conversation as much as I enjoyed recording it with Elle. Elle, welcome to the Charlène Gisèle show. I'm so excited to be speaking with you today about all things thyroid.
Thank you. I am so glad to be here. And it's a topic I think I'll probably talk about till I'm dead.
It won't be for a very long time, considering how you've
Let's hope so.
optimized your longevity. So we're going to spend the next decades speaking about it. Elle, I was just reflecting on how honored I am to have you on the show after becoming a primal health coach myself. I know you're an amazing ambassador of the primal health lifestyle. And what I would like to start off with is to ask you, how did you become so passionate about the topic of thyroid?
Usually, a lot of health authors out there struggled with something at some point and then they figured it out and were like, I know I got to go tell the world about it. Right. So that really is what happened to me. I had no intentions of being a health author or speaker. In fact, I was a comedy writer and performer. I literally, this was the last thing on my list. However, I was always naturally a writer. If I look back in time, I would say it makes sense that I became one, even though I never wanted to. But what happened to me is I got hit with hypothyroidism and I live in Los Angeles and not one doctor or endocrinologist or specialist could help me. And I went over to 24 endocrinologists and doctors. They either misdiagnosed me, they either mistreated me and made it worse, or they literally just didn't know what to do. They didn't understand how to interpret the tests or how to treat me. And finally, I just got tired of it and I actually fixed it myself. Now, at this time, there weren't podcasts. There was really no websites about this. Now the information is out there. People can listen to hundreds of interviews with me. But at the time, I had to figure it out myself. And so I was sort of left in the dust, crying in parking lots of doctors' offices. Like, how can this be? I'm in a first world country. I have the best insurance in this country. And I'm paying now $600 to go to some famous Beverly Hills doctor who was on the back of Suzanne Summers' hormone book because they must know. And sure, they might have taken the correct test, but they also didn't help me too. So I was broke. I spent money that I didn't have. Doctors ditched me and no one would help me. And so I had this thought like, if I don't do this, no one else is going to do this. And so I had to take my health into my own hands. And now what I do is I impart all of the information I learned so that no one has to do that they are armed with this knowledge so that they can help their doctor practice medicine with them. So, at the time, I had to dose myself with thyroid hormones. I had to order them over the internet from other countries because no doctors here knew what they were doing. That is like, shouldn't be happening in the United States, you know? So it was very sad. It was very discouraging. In fact, actually, not too long ago, about a couple of months ago, I ran into one of the uninformed doctors that I was crying in the parking lot after the visit. And I hadn't seen them in like 10 something years, 15 years. And I had a meltdown afterwards. I went home because it is a horrible feeling because this doctor threw their hands up in their office to me that day many years ago and said, "Oh, Elle, this is too complicated." And I want to be like, oh, this is complicated. So medical school wasn't complicated. Like, I don't have a medical degree. I have a philosophy degree and I figured it out. Clearly, it's not that complicated, lady. That's what she told me. And so when I saw her and she knew me, she's like, oh, hey. And she knew I wrote a book and she was like, oh, hey, nice to see you. And I was, hey, how are you? And then I just like left and I cried as if it were that day. I realized I needed even some more healing. So it's tough. You get gaslit by doctors. Doctors won't listen to you. They are uninformed and using protocols from 1973, which is the year that I was born. That's a long time ago. And so that's kind of how I became an expert. I had no choice. And then after that, it was like, after what I went through, 7 years of my 30s just being ripped from me, I was like, I can't stand by and let this happen. Like, I am going out there and I'm going to tell everybody, you know. So I've been doing that ever since and became a number one best-selling author as a result. And I'm just so happy to be able to help people in 20 plus countries now. And I'll keep on doing it forever because every day someone wakes up and discovers that they have hypothyroidism.
All too common. I'm really well aware of how much of a problem it is. And perhaps I would like to take a step back and go to the fundamentals. So, Thyroid 101 by Elle. Let's go for it.
All right. So, your thyroid, it's a gland and it's shaped by like a little tiny butterfly and it's wrapped around the base of your neck. And if you're a man, it is below your Adam's apple and you can kind of feel it. I mean, it shouldn't be inflamed and large. If it is, contact me. Right? No, but you know, you can kind of go, oh, yeah, I can feel it. I'm touching mine right now if you're watching the video. So, the thyroid is the master gland of the human body. And not because I say so, not because like that's my opinion, it literally truly is. And I'll explain to you why. So, for example, the thyroid is in charge of your heart rate, your body temperature, the production and regulation of your sex hormones. So, okay, we kind of can understand what that means, but what it really means is when a child is born it's very rare, but when a child is born without a thyroid, they don't catch it right away, they're dead. If they don't catch it right away, there's intellectual disability. Why? It's so important to the development of the human brain. It's also very important to adult brains. So when you are lacking in thyroid hormones, particularly T3, the active one, your thinking's off. You got brain fog. This is one of the major symptoms of hypothyroidism. I can't remember everything. I think I'm getting old. I'm now depressed. I don't care about life. General malaise and dyslexia, like kind of where you wouldn't have it before. Like I can't find the words. I'm speaking the words backwards. I'm confused. I read a paragraph. I'm reading it a third time now, and like I can't get it, and that's scary because that's mind stuff. The other stuff is body stuff. And there's over 30 to 40 symptoms. I had over 30 of them at one point. The goal is full elimination of symptoms. So that's the deal. By the way, just for everyone listening and watching, every hypothyroid or thyroid issue is completely manageable and solvable and fixable through a variety of means. So even if you have been on thyroid hormone replacement for years and you're like, I'm not doing well, I would say you're only suffering because of two reasons. Right now, anybody in the world is only suffering from thyroid issues because of two reasons. Number one, you're dealing with a doctor who's uninformed, outdated protocols, doesn't know how to treat you, test you, etc. Second reason is you're uninformed. You don't know about this disease. So now you can't help yourself, you can't advocate for yourself, and you certainly can't help your doctor help you. And they're the ones that might need to prescribe you thyroid hormones, right? You don't want to be ordering them over the internet like I had to for many years. So there's only two reasons why you're suffering. Usually it's because of the second one. I mean, it's both. It's like they have an uninformed doctor, but they also don't know. And that's why people find me. Perseverance pays. I wouldn't be here. I'd probably be dead if I didn't keep persevering to find the answer. And so when you take control of your health, when you don't completely give up all of your health and throw it into the hands of a doctor, please save me. When you take some initiative and you're like, maybe I should learn about the disease that I have. Because if you're listening, Ryan, you take thyroid hormone replacement, then you know what? You really should be able to describe it to me, sufficiently. And most people go, I don't know what it is. I take this thing called whatever. They don't know what it's doing to their body or how it's working. And so now they're suffering, looking for answers outside of themselves. I'm here to tell you, how long are you going to keep doing that? I just recently talked to a woman who has been on thyroid hormone replacement for 4 years, but she's still hypothyroid. And you go, well, why is that? Because she's not on the right dosage and the right combination and the blah, blah, blah. Okay. But here's the thing that's crazy about this story. The only fix to actually make her better, to solve the whole problem, was like a little extra, just a little extra. All she needed was like 15 milligrams more to solve the whole picture. She's been suffering with subpar thyroid for 4 years, and she's been on thyroid hormone replacement, treated by a doctor. It wasn't until she's like, let me go search. She finds me. We have a call. That's the solution. Sometimes it's that simple. Sometimes it's that quick. Sometimes it's, oh, just remove that food group, see what happens in 8 weeks. I mean, some of this stuff is very simple. Most of it's very easy to fix, 3 to 6 months. The only time it's very difficult to fix is when people have multiple problems like, oh, you have cancer and Lyme disease and menopause, right? But the thyroid would be the easiest and the quickest one to get right. And then the other things might take longer for you to completely feel well. But hypothyroidism is really not brain surgery, and it's actually quite quick and easy to fix if you follow the right protocol and do it in a timely fashion.
Could you walk us through the difference between hypo and hyper, and also how people can cycle in and out of that, particularly when they take treatment? I've had clients that were hypo became hyper or the other way around, and then it becomes a bit messy. Could you walk us through what each means and how it can interact?
The only way someone becomes hyper on thyroid hormones is if they are not being treated correctly, like by someone who doesn't know what they're doing. That's and I see that a lot. Like people will come to me, I'm like, oh my God, your doctor actually made you hypothyroid because they didn't know what they were doing. Okay. So usually you don't have those swings if you're on the right medication. So hypothyroidism is underactive, sluggish, slow, constipated, tired, freezing, right? I told you body temperature. Hyperthyroid is overactive, and hyperthyroid is much rarer. It's more dangerous because you can have a heart attack. Suddenly, your heart rate is 156 and you're just woke up, right? That's very dangerous. So, hyperthyroidism, too much, hypo, low. With hyperthyroidism, you would have the opposite symptoms. You would be sweaty, you would be hot. You know what I mean? Your temperature would be high. Um, the one thing that's a misconception about hyperthyroidism is people think hyper, like, blah, 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 blah. It's not like that actually at all. Even though T3 is an energy hormone and people with hyperthyroidism have way too much, they're not bouncing off the walls. It actually is quite exhausting because it's hypermetabolic. So humans are like Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cold, right in the middle. And that's why humans are all roughly 98.6 degrees in the afternoon. And in the morning, we're between 97.7 and 98.2. And a lizard has its own set of temperature regulatory thyroid, and actually every living thing has a thyroid gland. I mean, cats and dogs get thyroid problems too. They also get hypothyroidism. So that's the difference. Now, hyperthyroidism is much rarer, and it is usually ignited by Graves' disease, which is an autoimmune disorder. But you could get Graves from like having a horrible infection and the body goes haywire and is reacting. You can get Hashimoto's, the autoimmune form of hypothyroidism, by living in a place with black mold. I mean, like there are environmental things that can induce this. And we also know certain food groups can contribute to it. But yes, so there's the bottom line is that hyperthyroidism, very rare. What they usually have done classically is if they can't control it with medication, they essentially will blast your thyroid with radioactive iodine called RAI. So when hyperthyroidism is out of control, and I said because it's so dangerous, they will do that and essentially make the person hypothyroid because that's a lot safer and easier of a place to be. And then they would still need all my information because again, now they'd be hypothyroid. So so with those people, that's what happens to them. Now, you should never remove the gland unless you have to, and in that case, that would be thyroid cancer. Sometimes they have to remove the entire gland. Um, Very serious. Those people, if anyone listening, it's imperative that they are really optimized on thyroid hormone replacement because they have nothing. And so if they're suffering, it's a really awful suffering because they're running on nothing. So that's really imperative. So Graves' disease is the autoimmune form. For hypothyroidism, the autoimmune form is Hashimoto's, but you can have the non-autoimmune form. I don't have Hashimoto's, but I have hypothyroidism. But every symptom is gone, and I live like a normal person with a great metabolism because I take enough thyroid hormone replacement for my levels to be normal.
And I know you've also experimented with desiccated thyroid,
Uh-huh.
something slightly more holistic. Can you tell us what was your experience with that? How do you feel about it? Can it ever replace hormone replacement? Can you tell us where
I'm
you
glad
stand?
you brought this. Okay, I'm glad you brought this up because we really need to clear this up. I just did a reel the other day on Instagram about this because this is a really misleading marketing. Okay, so there is something called natural desiccated thyroid, NDT. It is actually prescription. It's in every single country. In the United States, it's Armour Thyroid, Nature Thyroid, things like that. In Canada, it's IRFA. In Thailand, it's Thyroid S. Okay, so it's everywhere. Comes from pigs. It's not more holistic. That is a misconception. I mean, look, it does come from an animal, so I guess it's more natural. The reason that this was discovered in the late 1800s, the reason is because they have a similar profile, pigs to humans, in terms of what thyroid output. So what they do is they take the gland, they dry it up, and but it's standardized. Each pill, each dosage is standardized to have actual active thyroid hormones in it. The stuff that you buy at the store or on Instagram from ancestral supplements or this, that, and the other, or desiccated bovine thyroid, zero thyroid hormones in it. It's misleading marketing. And look, I know those companies, I'm not ripping on them. I'm not saying that it wouldn't be beneficial to somebody. It's not thyroid hormones. So they'll say things like, hey, 3 of these pills equal about 120 milligrams of this, and it's wrong. So I get so many clients that come to me like, oh, I've been taking this stuff thinking that it's thyroid hormone replacement. The FDA regulates that. There are no thyroid hormones in that stuff. Zero. They cannot sell it over the counter. Zero thyroid hormones. In fact, it would be extremely dangerous if there were. You could have someone become completely hyperthyroid from taking that stuff. And you can also have them be completely hypothyroid. If you also had something called a reverse T3 problem, you would never want to take that if it had T4 and T3 in it. They do not have any thyroid hormones in them. I actually was on an interview once with a woman who was coming up with a supplement like this, and she actually quoted that. She said, "Oh, it's like equal to this amount of NDT." And I said, "No, I said, stop the interview right now." I said, "We cannot air this." I said, "You need to go look right now. Like, call your guy. It's not true." And then she finally did get back to me. She goes, "Oh, you're right. They don't have any hormones in it." So please be aware of that marketing. NDT is a prescription that is standardized by USP to have a certain amount of T4 and T3 in every single pill. So for example, I can tell you right now, in a 60 milligram pill of natural desiccated thyroid, the real stuff, not over-the-counter bovine, natural desiccated pork thyroid has 38 micrograms of T4 and about 9 micrograms of T3 in it. Okay. And so what would 30 milligrams have? Half of that. What would 15 milligrams have? And so on. So they're standardized. Each pill has a guaranteed amount. It's not the case with these things that you can buy. So it's not to say that a glandular product, which is what you're talking about, this a bovine glandular supplement, just health products that are out there, bovine desiccated, organs and stuff like that. I am not saying that to stay away from them entirely or that they couldn't be beneficial, but they're not thyroid hormone replacement. And so that's the big problem there, is that people somehow think they're getting thyroid hormones. And I've had people come to me and they're like, well, I don't understand. And I was like, they think that somehow when a doctor said you should take natural desiccated thyroid, they think somehow that it equals that stuff. And it's not. It's actually a prescription.
Okay, that's really good to know. And I wanted to ask you a little bit more about our environment, because what I have noticed, and I would love your expertise on that, is that there is more and more hypothyroid symptoms. And I've heard that there is a lot to be said about our environment, microplastic, the amount of chemical that we use, our kitchen, our bathroom, chemicals, scented candles, perfume directly on the neck, and all of that, which I was guilty of for many, many years. And I have stopped after I had some challenges with my thyroid. I wanted your take on, you know, busting some myths around it. Is there reality around it? What do you think about the toxins that we have around us in the kitchen, in the bathroom? What should we be aware of?
My mom is 78 years old and, she's been drinking regular coffee out of the grocery store and she's fine, right? Like, so the whole, like, I need mold free coffee. Look, if I had a whole host of serious things, I would do my best to be as clean as possible while I'm trying to solve something. I also believe in regular detox. I'm a huge fan of far infrared saunas. I own a sunlight and sauna myself. It's one of the best anti-aging detox devices you can have. I also was riddled with high mercury and arsenic. I mean, literally, like you'd think someone was trying to poison me. I had to detox from that, and it was rough. I mean, like very high levels. I think my mercury is at it was at like above 30. Yeah, and why? Probably because of lifelong of tuna and sushi. Because I love sushi and tuna, and I ate this my whole life, and and it probably was hypothyroid there for a while, and your body's not a good detoxer, so maybe things got clogged up during those years of that disease state. Um, you do your best. Listen, do you have to have grass-fed meat for everything? No, if you can't afford it, don't. Listen, if you can't afford it, I'd rather have you make the right choices in the food groups versus things like grass-fed or organic. And if there are some things that they talk about like the dirty dozen, like there are particular vegetables that you can go, okay, I know these are extra offensive. Even buying frozen vegetables that are organic can be very cheap and a good way to get that stuff fresh without having to spend the money and then waste it, and it's rotting in the refrigerator. uh, we do our best, but listen, do I eat a piece of gluten? And do I? Yeah, yeah, I do, because I'm a normal human being, and I'm at a birthday party or a wedding, and I'm going to go to town on some cake. Do you know what I'm saying? Um, Live your life, be a human. It's like the people who go keto, and then it's like, oh my God, I hope no one sees me eating this apple. It's like, I had with someone one time, I ate something that was like a grain, and someone's like, oh, I thought you were paleo. You wrote a book on paleo. I'm like, I am. And I'm like, and I'm sure there's tons of paleo people too that grab a bite of rye bread every now and then. If I had Hashimoto's, would I? Absolutely not. I'd stay away from gluten, but I'd still probably dip into grains every now and then, like gluten-free bread or something. You know, when you're along the healing journey, it's best to be as clean and strictly paleo as possible. I don't suggest that people get paleo pizzas and paleo granolas and things like that in the beginning of a health journey. That's for you down the road once you've achieved what you need to achieve. And now you're like, you know what? I feel like a pizza or pasta or whatever, right? So I say sparingly on that stuff. Yeah, please don't drink out of plastic. Please don't microwave stuff out of plastic. I had a 42-year-old man come to me, very good looking, fit guy. His thyroid was so screwed up. Um, we fixed it, but during that time, he also found out he was riddled with plastics. And everyone knows, with high mercury or arsenic, you can actually take some supplements and some pills that can detox you. Sauna does help. With things like plastic, the only thing that's going to detox you is a far infrared sauna. It's not gonna be like a supplement. So, if you're out there and somehow you found out you had high plastics, that's the way to go. Get yourself pay for a sauna session somewhere, buy a sauna, it'll pay itself off eventually. So yeah, we are toxic. As much detox people can get involved with, I'm for. And again, like sauna, steam, sweat, exercise. Um, but you know what? Do I buy everything organic all the time? No, because sometimes I just feel like eating those blueberries, and that's the ones they have and they're not organic. Do you know what I mean? So I don't worry about it. However, if I was riddled with a bunch of things that were challenging to me, sure, maybe I'd pay extra attention. So I think it's like, what can you do? Do your best. And also, what can you afford? You know? Not everybody, people think paleo is expensive. It's actually not expensive. It becomes cheaper because you eat less food overall once you get fat adapted, as you know. Um, but it actually isn't very expensive. There's some hacks to it that can make it, you know what I mean? And now the world is filled with the products are cheaper to get avocado oil based mayonnaise or to get, healthier dressings. They're getting cheaper. There's more. I just saw the other day at the local grocery store, they have their own brand now of gluten-free breadcrumbs. Right? Like you wouldn't be able to find that except for at Whole Foods many years ago, right? And my fiance has celiac. So if I'm going to make meatballs and I need to use breadcrumbs, right? So the world, and they were very inexpensive. It's like the world is catching on. There's so many more options and they are getting cheaper. So I don't think it's very expensive to do it. But at first, do you have to do everything pure, grass fed and all that stuff? Hey, just make the right choices at first, and then you can get into how gourmet you want to be about your meat cuts.
Are there some foods that we should completely remove from our kitchen or cooking habits if we do have challenges around our thyroids?
So there's a big debate, and the carnivore podcaster Paul Saladino did a couple episodes with me that you should go check out. People really like them, but he titled one of them like how broccoli is destroying your thyroid. Okay, now that was a little bit too exact. I don't agree with that. I don't think broccoli is destroying your thyroid. There was an argument, and there have been arguments made that raw cruciferous vegetables can affect thyroid negatively. People usually aren't eating those things raw. Does that mean you should stay away from raw cruciferous vegetables while you're suffering with a thyroid problem? I mean, I guess it can't hurt. Why not? Because the jury's still out. Some people say cooking it is better. Paul Saladino would say there's evidence to say that even cooking it doesn't remove that antagonistic thing. I've had hypothyroidism and I take thyroid hormone replacement. And if somehow cruciferous vegetables were affecting how that metabolized, I would know it because I eat cruciferous vegetables. So again, I don't say don't stop eating them, but is it maybe, oh yeah, I've been eating a lot of broccoli and cabbage and kimchi. Okay, yeah, maybe you go, hey, let's look at some lettuces and some Swiss chards. Okay, switch it up. What and you can help everyone with, and as a primal coach, I think the biggest order of business for everyone, even if you don't want to change your food choices, is get rid of the horrible oils. Get rid of all of the crappy oils. You're only going to cook with coconut or butter or ghee or avocado oil or tallow, or avocado oil, olive oil. So that's number one. I mean, just get these crappy oils out of there. And I would just say the oils and the gluten and the grains. Now, it's very hard for people to give up grains, but then I would say, could you just kind of do white rice for a while, if you needed something? But some people that's very hard for. But then I at least say, at least don't eat the gluten then.
What is the connection between gluten and thyroid, and why is there a sort of bad love story between the two?
Totally bad. Yeah, terrible love triangle. It ended up in suicide murder. Yeah, basically. So, okay. I don't have Hashimoto's. I still know the ill effects of gluten, so I'm going to limit that. But if you had Hashimoto's or any autoimmune disease, what we do know is that gluten ignites the TPO, the antibodies for Hashimoto's. And so, why? Molecular mimicry. So, gluten in the protein has a substance that kind of mimics thyroid tissue. So, when it enters the body, the immune system is like, oh my God, and starts to murder your thyroid gland. And the murdering is the high antibody. So, like the higher the antibodies on a test, the more active murder is going on. And so, we see this too because people eliminate gluten entirely and they knock down antibodies from like 1,000 to 200. A success story in my book knocked down her antibodies from about 300, 350 down to 25. She'd never seen them that low in her life because when you have Hashimoto's antibodies and you're with an uninformed doctor and you go to that doctor, they're like, well, you have antibodies and there's nothing you can do about it. There is something you can do about it. You want to spend your life doing something about it. It's your goal in life to get those antibodies down to undetectable levels. And you can do that for all of it. I want to throw out Palmer Kippola, who cured herself of MS. Age 19, took her like 20 years to figure it out. She fixed her MS. Not even on the test anymore. All symptoms gone. Seamus Mullen, famous chef, Courtney Contos, another chef, both of which cured their rheumatoid arthritis. When I say cured, I mean if you test their RA factor in their blood, it's non-existent. They were once told, sorry, no point in testing. You're always going to have this. Sorry, you're going to be in a wheelchair. Like I've seen too many. I've interviewed over 500 people. I've seen too many amazing stories, but particularly with autoimmune disorders. Paleo and functional medicine, paleo AIP, autoimmune protocol, is one of the best places to go if you have an autoimmune disorder. Immediately adopt that, and I think you've got a fighting chance. Then there's the escalation to carnivore, which is the most severe. But there are, and I do have a few clients who literally cannot tolerate any plant matter at all. Like 1 or 2 leaves of romaine lettuce activates their Crohn's and colitis. I mean, this is serious stuff. So for those people, their life is saved by just eating meat and fat. Like their life is saved. I mean, they're kind of bummed about it a little bit at first, I mean, no one really wants to you want to be able to eat more. So there are solutions here, but it starts with paleo primal. Then it starts with, then it goes to paleo AIP. Then maybe it's paleo AIP plus zero histamine. and then maybe it's moving to more of a carnivore-ish, then maybe carnivore. So there's lots of stages. I don't suggest anyone jump to the extremes like keto or carnivore unless you medically have to. Um, but that's sort of my little, hopefully that answered it.
That's super useful, definitely. So, is there anything that you can do to eat more natural?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. We talked about glandulars earlier, and there are bovine thyroid glandulars. There's bovine adrenal cortex, right? That can help people with adrenal problems. It's not to say that wouldn't be an effort worth making or something to try. But again, if you need thyroid hormones, then that's not the answer. That was the only point I was making before. Holistic, yes. Selenium. Look, nutrients responsible for thyroid health. Selenium, tyrosine, ashwagandha for adrenals, great salt. Make sure you're getting good salt. I use Redmond real salt. Um, so salt, again, optimizing the nutrients like vitamin D and iron, particularly, of course, I would say that a vegan vegetarian lifestyle is going to be detrimental to your health. Doesn't mean you have to eat red meat and liver, but it's going to fail you eventually, and I warn against it. And what I see over coaching people 10 plus years all over the world is this. When someone was a vegetarian from very young, they often don't get their period until very late, like 20 years old. Or if they became a vegetarian later on in life, then they go through early menopause at 40. The reason is, and you know this, is because cholesterol is so essential to our hormones. And they often don't get the saturated fat, right? Because they're not eating the meat and B12 and some other things that are obviously very important. Um, Other hacks, aside from detoxing, doing a detox or testing for heavy metals, which I think is really important. Um, while I will put almost anything on my face, I think it's very important, and even my doctor would say, don't put crappy stuff on your face. But as far as your body, it's soaking in your bloodstream. So don't be going to the bed body workshop and getting this crap stuff and putting it on your body. It's going to sink in and it's going to really actually mess with your hormones. Same thing with paleo's not dairy. It's usually some full fat dairy and butter, obviously. I really watch dairy intake. And if you're going to do dairy, then do organic and hormone free and as much as you can there, because that's going to wreak havoc on your hormones as well. So those are the things that are I think you really have to stay away from. But yeah, a long time ago, I stopped putting lotions and things on my body that were extremely toxic, or I just go for ones that are just, so much more natural and organic. Um, and, aloe vera gel and even some oil and stuff mixed together can be a really cheap, great moisturizer that's not going to mess with your hormones.
And you can use tallow as well on your face, which is amazing.
You can. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
really
don't
good.
like I don't like a greasy feeling, but even for example, I'm a swimmer, and so to avoid chlorine, if you're a swimmer and you don't want to mess your thyroid because chlorine displaces thyroid, then what I would do is I would rub my entire body in coconut oil, and it gives you about 30 minutes of barrier. When people usually don't swim longer than 30 minutes. I mean, there's people that swim for an hour, but if you're swimming laps, because that's something that it's a hack for me because even though I take thyroid hormone replacement, iodine is still very important. I don't want to keep displacing it. And in times where I'm swimming 3 times a week, if I'm in one of those modes, then I will completely douse my entire body with coconut oil before I go in the pool.
Okay, interesting hack. Good to know. And it doesn't ruin the pool?
Not my problem. No,
Sorry.
I don't know. It's I doubt it. I mean, people are coming in there with all sorts of other stuff, but I mean, it, it,
Thyroid health above all,
thyroid
people.
health above everything else, man. I didn't get it.
I,
No one complained about
I
it.
got it.
I mean, people put sunscreen on all over the body, which is way more toxic than
I know.
coconut oil. So yeah.
I hear you. Elle, I really want to ask you about thyroid and fertility and
Yes.
miscarriages because
Mm.
I've gone through that a lot with some of my clients and they've been heartbreaking stories. And I really want your guidance and expertise around the connection between thyroid challenges and risk of miscarriages, but also how important it is to be aware and on top of your thyroid health if you are trying to conceive.
Really glad you brought this up. First of all, if you are trying to conceive, please stop for a minute and go get your thyroid comprehensively tested. Not, oh, I'm going to go to my doctor and ask them to test my thyroid because they're going to test it wrong. Okay. So whether you get my free thyroid guide, you look at the tests, whatever, go get tested properly. Why? Because you don't want a miscarriage, and hypothyroidism will do that. Why? It goes back to what I said about the thyroid being the master gland. It's in charge of the production and regulation of your sex hormones. So, sex hormones are usually off and out of balance when you're hypothyroid. Therefore, you get pregnant. Now, your body is not, you don't have enough thyroid hormones to then ignite the production of the sex hormones. Now, you're not making enough progesterone to keep the baby in the uterus. And there we go. Now, we've got a miscarriage. There's the other element of sort of the primal perspective of your body. I know I'm personifying the body when I say this, but this is kind of how it is. When you're hypothyroid, the body's like trying to save you. So it's like, uh-oh, dial this back, right? We're going to dial back sex hormones. We don't want them to get horny. We don't, they can't afford a baby. So we're going to drop it out of the uterus. They don't have enough nutrients right now. They're starving or they're struggling. And so your body's trying to save you by giving you that miscarriage. It's not, I don't want you to look at your body. If this happened to you, I don't want you to look, I'm not saying look at the miscarriage like, oh, thank you for saving my life. But really, like, that's why it's not your body trying to reject you. It's your body being like, she can't do this right now. We're not equipped. And it really then doesn't have the hormonal equipment for that. Then on the other side, too, let's say you're on thyroid hormone replacement and you're doing fine. And then you decide you want to become pregnant. Well, then now in this case, you really do need to test the thyroid like once a month because the baby's demands are going to suck all your you're going to need more. You are likely going to need more throughout the pregnancy, and then you're going to have to, right? So this needs to be monitored extra close. Listen, there's thousands and thousands of people who have had healthy pregnancies on all the variations of thyroid hormones. As long as whatever variation, combo, timing, or whatever is making you unhypothyroid, then your uterus and your stuff is like everyone else who's not on thyroid hormone replacement. You're a normal human being. Do you know what I mean? Like you're normal. And so then you have a normal pregnancy like everything else. But the trouble is, like, I had a woman come to me actually yesterday and she wants to get pregnant. She's like 27, but she has such a horrible reverse T3 problem. Like it is so bad that if she were to get pregnant tomorrow, she's going to have horrible morning sickness because morning sickness, even if you don't have thyroid problems, is related to a thyroid issue, a thyroid thing. So it's going to be bad. And then also she really has the risk of a miscarriage. Now let's look at the other side, infertility. So have you been struggling with IVF, all this stuff? The gyno tested your thyroid. They didn't test it right, probably. And now you've been struggling and spending all this money when it had nothing to do with that. That's also a very frustrating situation people discover later. Or they discover like my uterus was never needed to be taken, right? Like that's one. Oh, my thyroid gland never needed to be removed. There's another one. And so I hope that made sense. Can I clear up anything around that topic? But I do have, if you went to ellruss.com/blog and you typed in pregnancy, there's a whole blog article about thyroid and pregnancy.
I will put that in the show notes. And I would love to go back to what you mentioned because I know it's in your guidance and I will definitely put the resources, but I really want to have a live conversation with you around that because I found it so useful to know and it's empowered me to also push my doctors because what I found is when I asked for a thyroid check, the only thing at first that I got is a TSH and I had to proactively keep asking and asking for more. So could you walk us through what you typically get and what you actually need?
Yeah. So, by the way, all the tests that I'm going to mention right now are in my free thyroid guide, and there's actually some more tests in there. So, this is, you don't have to worry about, oh, I didn't catch what she said. Freethyroidguide.com for that. Okay. So, what most doctors test, and by the way, anyone listening who's had their thyroid tested, told it was normal, or you're on thyroid hormone replacement with an endocrinologist, I would like to bet you $1 million right now. Go look at your results. 9 times out of 10, 99.9% of the time, the doctor has only tested the TSH or they've only tested TSH and T4. If that has happened to you and you're listening to this and you go back and you check your labs, please do go back and check your labs. And you're checking your labs, you're like, shoot, man, Elle's right. My doctor only tested either my TSH or my TSH and T4 and nothing else. I'm sorry to tell you, you are with a horrifically uninformed doctor. Big time. So let me list the tests that are absolutely critical. These are the tests for what is happening. Is there something wrong with my thyroid? Let me take a look. And those are 6 tests, okay? There's 4 main ones, but you do want to at least once in your life get tested for the 2 antibodies for Hashimoto's. You want to make sure that you don't have the autoimmune form. Why? Because there's some other things you can do there. Okay. So there's some other modalities and things you can do with Hashimoto's, and you would really want to know that. But let's say for me, like I've been tested for Hashimoto's a couple times in my life. Do I need to keep getting tested for that? No, I don't have Hashimoto's. Okay. So the 4 main tests are TSH, stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. Free T4, free as in freedom, FREE, free T4, free T3, and then reverse T3. So we've got TSH, free T3, free T4, and reverse T3. Main 4. However, you also want to get the 2 Hashimoto's antibody tests. Those are TPO antibody, that stands for thyroid peroxidase antibody. And then the second one is TG antibody, and it's called thyroglobulin. And so those are the 6 main tests. Now, there's some related ones you want to get to. Hypo patients, when you're hypothyroid, you can't hold on to nutrients even if you've been eating raw liver every day. So you're classically low in iron. You're going to want to get an iron comprehensive panel. These are like $50. They're really cheap. You want to get that has TIBC, percentage saturation, ferritin, and total iron in it. Those 4 tests. That's an iron comprehensive panel. And then you want to get your vitamin D tested, vitamin D3 25 hydroxy. And then you also want to get B12 tested. Those are some smart, those things, the B12, the D, and the thyroid test, like that's a good picture, because usually if you're hypothyroid, you have an issue with iron and vitamin D. And so you want to know that. Some people don't, but here's why. If the iron is really low, it's absolutely imperative, and you'll never fix your thyroid problem unless you get the ferritin up, which is iron storage. And so you do want to know that right away. However, could you just get the 6 tests first? And if there was something like, looking shady, then you can go get the other ones. But now you're talking 2 blood pricks there. So everyone can actually go, if you live in the United States, there are certain states that allow you to test your own blood work and certain states that don't. I don't know why. It seems really crappy to me that they wouldn't let you just go test your blood, right? But some states don't. I live in California where they do. But if you went to privatemdlabs.com/Elle Russ, there's my panel at a discount, almost everything I said, and you can get tested on your own without a doctor and insurance. And sometimes that's what you need to do to get the test, so then you can bring the tests around, and once you've sussed out some more practitioners, or bring them to me. I do 15-minute clarity calls. Sometimes that's all that's needed for someone to just take a look and go, oh no, try this, or here's the roadmap. So it's critical to get proper testing, or else you might remain sick or discounted. I was told my thyroid was fine. As my hair was falling out, I had horrible acne. I was bleeding. I had a polyp in my uterus, and the doctor kept testing my TSH, a 1973 test. Like I said, I'm 51 years old. I was born in 1973. Like, are you kidding me? And I was kept sick for so long, I had to spend like $3,000 to get a polyp removed from my uterus that was developed because I was in a hypothyroid state, because the guy said, not your thyroid.
And Elle, once you get all of that sorted and you'd find out that you actually need that hormone replacement and you get put on it, let's assume that you have a fantastic doctor and you have the right dosage and you've done the right test, or you've had a consultation with you. How often after you are on hormone replacement should you test again? And do you stay on that hormone replacement for the rest of your life?
Great questions. One is just taking, people are very afraid of thyroid hormone replacement and then think like they're going to have to take it for the rest of your life. Maybe. And that's okay. You shouldn't be afraid of it. There's nothing wrong with it. You're giving your body what it's not giving you. It's not a manipulative medication. However, It's not a life sentence. It's not like you're ruining your thyroid forever. You can recalibrate a thyroid. You could get on thyroid hormone replacement, get unhypothyroid, fix some stuff. You're feeling good for a while and, optimize all the things. And then you can go, let's try to get off of it. Right. I wouldn't do that experiment. Obviously, do it with a doctor. I wouldn't do that experiment like right before your honeymoon. You know what I mean? It's like, don't get up, don't try that right before summer. Maybe, when you're going to be at home or kind of laying low for a while. So it's not necessarily a life sentence. And then, sorry, what was the other one?
Oh, the question is how often do you get tested? So, for example, can you talk to us about your journey? I know you're on hormone replacement. So, how often do you get that check? And I know that you've adjusted over the years the dosage. In your personal experience, is that a forever thing for you? Or do you think that one day you'll get off?
Well, I've tried to get off several times. It's always backfired, and so I don't really care to try anymore because each time I try, I get horribly fat, constipated, and I get all of the symptoms come back with a vengeance. So it's really not fun. And it's an accelerated aging, so no one wants that. Um, okay, so the way it happens with thyroid hormone replacement, if now not everyone needs it, but let's say someone needs to go on thyroid hormone replacement, and depending on the type or the kind of hormone or the combination. Um, I just talked about this the other day. There's a common mistake that doctors and patients make. Usually, you get an entry level dose of thyroid hormone replacement because you can never guess by size or weight or anything what someone's going to need because a very little could affect you a lot and a very little could be nothing for me. Doesn't matter. So, you always start off with like an entry level dose with people, right? To kind of see. The biggest mistake doctors and patients make is they don't get tested soon enough. You need to get tested every 3-4 weeks until you have reached your optimal dose. Doctors will be like, here's an entry level dose, see you in 6 months. Wrong, wrong. You're going to feel worse. You're going to feel more hypothyroid. You're going to be like, this stuff doesn't work. I have hypo symptoms I never even had before I started this because I read them on a list somewhere and now they're worse. It's not the thyroid hormone replacement. It's because you have taken exogenous hormones. You are shutting the feedback loop down even further, and you're not climbing the ladder in a timely fashion. And so you're going to have a drop back. So the first couple of weeks on thyroid hormone replacement, people are like, oh, yeah, hey, brain's kicking in. And they're like, all right. Then the third week goes by, right? And now they're dropping, and they're like, no, 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 wait, what? And they blame the thyroid hormone replacement. They don't think it's working, or they think it doesn't work with me. And that's not it. Okay. So that is a very important nuance to understand. I write about it in my book and I talk about it all of the time. So when you're on the way to getting optimized, unfortunately, you do want to get tested every 3 weeks because then you get your blood tested at 3 weeks. That is enough time to see what that dose is doing. It will be accurately reflected. Then now it's going to take a week for the blood labs to even come back, especially because reverse T3 takes like way longer than the others. Now we're at 4 weeks. Now we're at a month. How quickly do you want to get better, right? Then you're going to need a dose adjustment. Same thing. Now you test again in 3 weeks. That's how you do it. And the doctors don't like it. They're going to be like, 3 weeks is too soon, or no, come back in 6 weeks. It's too long. So I went through this myself. I used to be on NDT. I used to be on Armour Thyroid many, many years ago. And it worked for me until I got a problem converting T4. Long story. But in that scenario, that was the experience that I had. The other, you're going to also have, okay, so once you reach your optimal dose, and now you're like, oh, all the symptoms are gone. That was horrible. I'm glad that whole thing is over with. And now you're like, oh, this is amazing. I love life. From that standpoint, it depends on where you live in the world. You might need a little more in winter and a little less in summer. You might only need to get tested once a year. I'd say that when you start thyroid hormone replacement, you reach an optimal dose. You might want to get tested twice a year for the first year after that. Sometimes what happens is you can take a dose, be totally optimal, but then now that your body's getting the things it needs to do the job, you become more calorically efficient and metabolically efficient, and now you somehow need a little less. That happens with people too. So you've got to be in tune with yourself. And in the case of like, ooh, I feel too hot or something's wrong, or I feel like I'm on too much or too little. If it were me, I would go right to temperatures. I would take my basal and my afternoon temp for 3 days and I would take a look at it. That would determine for me what I need to do with my thyroid. Um, I rarely get tested. I get tested like once a year because I know what I'm doing. I'm only getting tested for curiosity's sake, really, when I get tested for my thyroid, um, because I know enough and know what's happening. And I also have the home diagnostics and understand how it feels. So I did have to tinker with my dose for many years. The tinkering is more of a problematic or more applicable to people on T3 only, which is the last resort choice of thyroid hormone replacement, the absolute last resort choice. And I am on that last resort choice. That last resort choice can be way more wonky, less steady than the majority of the choices that are right for people out there. So, but I settled that and fixed that and everything's completely steady. But there was a while there where I was on a lot and now I'm on a little. And so going down, it's like I would drop it and then I'd be like, oh my God, okay, I feel good. Wait, that's a, and it was probably because I was getting paley, I was getting calorically efficient. So as my body was getting efficient, it needed less T3. And so that dose became too much. So it is important in that first year, right? To maybe monitor it more, be very in tune because perhaps you'll be like, "Oh, hold on, it might be a little bit more now, and I need to drop it." Or
Elle,
you might need more. It might be like, "Actually, this isn't enough."
thank you, Elle. I feel like I needed to have that conversation with you 5 years ago. But at least, now I've had it. Late is better than never. And I just really want to thank you and just want to ask you a last question. Where would you like listeners to get into your world? I know you have your book, you've mentioned all the amazing tests and resources. Is there anything else that you would want our listeners to know about you?
I would just go to ellruss.com and you'll see everything and all the ways that I can help you with thyroid or confidence. And, my books and all of that stuff is right there. As far as social media, I am on all of them, but I am most active on Instagram. So, you feel free to send me a DM there or follow me there. But yeah, ellruss.com has everything you need. And if you just want to go directly to the free thyroid guide, just go to freethyroidguide.com and just download that. You'll get some really great informational emails from me. And soon I'm making a free podcast series to go along with that so that people can also have more.
Elle, thank you so much. We'll add all of these amazing resources to the show notes, and I'm so grateful for this conversation. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank
Thanks.
you so much.
Thanks for listening in. I have a quick question for you now. What do you want to hear from me for our new latest episodes? Just give me a quick comment and let me know what you would like to hear about. Which topic are you passionate about? Which topic do you feel we haven't covered yet and you really want us to cover? Please let me know. This show is for you, and I want to know what you want to listen to. I can't wait to hear your feedback. Thank you.